Welcome to the Fear and Greed Daily Interview. I'm Sean Aylmer. It's been a few months now since work from home orders officially ended for a lot of Australian workers, but in reality, many people haven't exactly been rushing back to the office. It raises a lot of questions over the future of work, where we'll be working, the role of technology, and what it'll take to lure people back into the workplace. Lenovo is a NASDAQ-listed tech company with a pretty interesting insight into the way technology is changing the way we work. After all, Lenovo computers are a fixture in many Australian workplaces. Matt Codrington is the Managing Director of Lenovo Australia and New Zealand and my guest this morning. Matt, welcome to Fear and Greed.
Sean, good morning. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Now, what I love about talking to someone like you is that you have a lot of data, presumably that most of the rest of us don't have, just in terms of the way people live their lives and work and operate and things like that. Let's start with Lenovo itself. You revamped your local office space, but you actually went and asked employees what they wanted and how they wanted to work in the future. What did you learn from them?
Sean, you're talking about one of the most important topics, at least from a management leadership perspective at the moment, especially over the last 2 years, and it's how to re-engage our team, right? The traditional workplace has moved, employee expectations have changed, but we're still very much social animals. So we did exactly as you said. We embarked on a refurbishment of our offices over the last 2 years. In redesigning the new office, we approached our leadership team, asked them to nominate various people in their teams to sit in a working group, comprised people across the organisation, various levels, departments, coming together to put forward that vision of what an office requirement might be, what are the considerations, what are the implications across each team and department. And then we sort of democratised those ideas collectively, and worked with a design company and facilities company to sort of operationalise and push the thinking a bit further. So I guess, Lenovo looks at it, we have what we call a people-first strategy. And what's really been reinforced over the last 2 years is a focus on well-being, a focus on flexibility, a focus on work-life balance. And I think if you consider that your employees are your most valuable strategic resource, you really need to cater for that. So in designing new office, so I can talk at length, I think, what we've done, the technology and so on, but, we know our employees have choices. They want to work more efficiently. They've got that heightened focus on well-being. They've got a new experience, I guess, working from home, and that changes the dynamic a little bit. So, as we looked at the office, we sort of put a core premise that allows every employee to design their day if they're coming into the office. I guess that's the simplest way to do it. So how do you design your day?
Okay, so how does that manifest itself? Is it about workplace bookings and sort of parking and end-of-trip facilities, or how does that manifest itself, what you're talking about?
Look, I think we've got a saying in Lenovo, smarter technology for all, and it's really that democratization of technology. So one of the cornerstones of this is IoT. You know about the Internet of Things, right? It's about sensors and data and enabling smart decisions through data. It's a core technology we sort of leverage in the refurbishment. But as you say, like, people can book space on demand. So they can go into real-time availability. They can see what space is available. They can book desks or meeting rooms. They can book the space before they leave home. It's quite individualized, but it's also very flexible. Now, this is a global statement. So if you go to any office in Lenovo now, I can sit here and book an office space in Raleigh, or I can book an office space in London, or I can book an office space in Mumbai in India. So it's that, I guess, that visibility. And then it's having a control tower that says, okay, well, we've got a single pane of glass, and that allows our facilities team to see what's happening with the capacity in the office. How's that working? We've got things like thermometers, which heat map areas, and they adjust the lighting and the heating and the cooling based on the team members that are in the office. Sensors sort of help them with maybe some of the COVID protocols that still, are there. So insights from that sort of technology allows us to update our spaces to manage the employees efficiently. We've booked out a whole floor that's collaboration space. So we've got desks still, of course. People still like working from desks, but we've got a big collaboration space which is designed to have that flexible working environment. So we've got movable touch screens. You can plug into mobile devices. There are cameras allowed to connect to your peers if they're not in the office. So really, I think the core of that is the collaboration that employees can come in. They can design their day. They can attend meetings. They can attend team meetings, but they can also then individualize that a little bit and do their own thing.
Stay with me, Matt. We'll be back in a minute. My guest today is Matt Codrington, Managing Director of Lenovo Australia and New Zealand. Couple of things that have happened over the past couple of years. We've all become a little bit more technology proficient. So when we walk into an office space and we're getting someone to come in externally, we kind of know how to use the machinery to get it to work, which I think was always a pretty big impediment to lots of those sorts of meetings. But the other thing is we used to follow technology. I mean, I think of my early days in journalism, and there was a Bloomberg machine, which you needed 15 minutes on before you wrote up a markets report, and you sort of had to wait in line to get that. And then we moved on to computers, and then, our workflows really were determined by your access to technology. What you're talking about, though, it's almost the reverse of it. So it's actually workplace behavior that comes first and then technology rather than the other way around.
I think there's been a level of confidence that's probably needed to come back into the office, first of all, right? So as we put these things in place, it's about making it not necessarily easy, but making it intuitive for folks to come in. And one of our biggest challenges as a technology company is to make our technology intuitive. Now in the age of this consumerism and apps and all that sort of stuff, you need to make things easy to use, or even you don't need to think about how you use them. You just, you can connect by pressing the connect button and you're on. And the technology now allows us to drive things like the proximity of machines. So if you're in a meeting room, it knows you're in the meeting room, it can connect you, it can give you the options on how you want to connect and who you want to connect to and so on. So I think that evolution of technology has taken away some of the mechanics of how to use. And really it's just more of now an intuitive outcome. And people, through the use of smartphones, probably over the last 5 years and so on, have also learnt how to engage technology perhaps a little bit differently as well, where technology was a bit of an unknown, but now it's part of our everyday lives. So, using that sort of facility, that sort of interface, it might be touch, it might be voice, makes it very easy, I think, for people now to engage.
Are you seeing most workplaces preparing for a hybrid model, or are there still some holdouts who just want people back in the office?
I think it's different for different industries. Some industries, it's more of a mandate probably to get people back into the office. So, for example, we've got call centers, we've got support centers and so on, where we have run them remotely. But even then, we onboarded probably over 100 people last year, new employees. And I think when you look at something like this, you need to take that into consideration. So the business is growing, things are morphing and transforming, especially in technology. As a company, we're going down all sorts of different routes now in terms of how we deliver outcomes for our customers. So I think when you look at that, you can say, well, for our business, it makes sense to have a lot of flexibility. So you can work from home if you choose to. There's efficiencies there. There's connection to family there. There's all sorts of stuff that's an advantage. And then there's all sorts of stuff that probably doesn't work from home. And, I spoke about onboarding. Maybe culture is another one. Culture is very difficult to do remotely. So depending on the company, I think there are different mandates. But what I'd say in my experience, probably over the last sort of 3 to 6 months, talking to my peers, I'm a member of certain groups with other CEOs. And I guess there's a heightened sense that even for mental health, we want to give our employees that option. So I think that's a fairly consistent thinking.
Yeah.
But most companies as well are still, very focused on that flexibility. And I think we need to be. So offering options for our staff to get the most efficiency, not to have the commute every day, but at the same time, able to have those intangible conversations, those water cooler conversations that are so important to get things done, to drive business and so on. So, generally speaking, I'd say most companies are that flexible hybrid style right now.
We have learned a lot about what works in the workplace and how to run a hybrid office. How much have we learned about what doesn't work? Are there certain things that we thought would be a great idea and have just fallen by the wayside because there was no adoption?
Well, in terms of probably broader concepts, Sean, I spoke about culture. Culture is so important to a company, midterm, long-term, to be successful. And if you look at things like, diversity, it's such an important factor. So having different context, better informed decisions, things are moving faster now. So I think one of my cornerstones about getting people together is that cultural aspect and allowing people to interact and have that outcome. And that, I think we know that doesn't work as efficiently. We've done training for our managers on how to manage virtual teams. So it's not just about getting on, a Zoom session or a team session or something during the day, but it's, when we're all locked in our homes, they were getting together on a Thursday afternoon or a Friday evening, and they were, having a glass of wine, or they were doing what they were socializing together as well. And I think that's just as important in a company culture, to have that level of interaction. Yeah. Onboarding new employees was a a huge challenge, not because we didn't give them the right tools, but it's just, it's how does the company work? And there's so many questions, and how do you do that? Mental health, I sort of touched on. We're social animals. So sitting in your bedroom working from a screen, or in your living room, or in your office, or whatever it is, you need a break from that. And people haven't been very good at setting boundaries, I think, based on what I've seen. You need to take breaks. You need to disconnect. You need to be able to sort of pull yourself away and go and, do something else. We had a guideline, I guess, in Lenovo during, the last year, where no meetings after 3:00. And that was really predicated on the fact that, kids got out of school at 3:00, and then you had the witching hour. So, you wanted just to, I think we sort of learn a lot in terms of how people interact outside of the office.
Yeah.
You've got all those distractions, dogs, kids, deliveries, all those sorts of things that really don't work in that sort of environment. So it's just taking the best of both of those, I think.
Lenovo's had a period of very strong demand during the pandemic, with Australia and New Zealand posting combined revenues of more than $1 billion, I think, for the first time. Is that all about the rush to equip staff for remote working, or is it also office upgrades? And I suppose the follow-on from that is, is the desktop computer almost dead?
Definitely not. I think the desktop's actually making a bit of a resurgence at the moment, actually.
Ah, right.
But what I say is, yes, we saw heightened demand. There's no doubt about that. And we, from maybe some of the government agencies, they were more sort of office bound. They had to extract themselves from the office and give the ability for their folks to work remotely. So that's definitely part of it. But I think what it did do is it drove a very rapid digitization. There's that meme that says, who drove you to the digital outcome in the last 2 years? Was it your CIO? Was it your CEO? Or was it, C19? And it was definitely the nature of what we were pushed into that drove that digitization. And I think, from small business through to large enterprises, there was an acknowledgement of technology and how it could impact how they work and the efficiency of their working and so on. So, from small businesses, we saw them investing in more technology. And probably from an enterprise level, we saw them upgrading their technology because of the reliance and, cybersecurity and all these other factors coming in. It's making sure that their technology worked every time. So it's just that sort of double down that investment in making sure that technology was a core enabler for the team. And I think that drove a lot of the refresh cycle as well. So, as a business, we've grown significantly. I think actually last quarter we became number one in ANZ, which was great. But it's not just that, though. It's not just the growth, but it's the diversity. So, our workplace solutions, we've got analytics now. We do digital signage. We do visitor management. We do smart lockers, which, sounds a little bit boring, but smart lockers are really powerful. They allow, staff to go in and grab their, maybe it's their new PC, or it's, to store, to pick up, to manage assets. All those sorts of things. So the technology space is, again, sort of diversified to meet our customers' needs. I think that's what's driven a lot of the growth.
Matt, thank you for talking to Fear and Greed.
Thanks very much, Sean.
That was Matt Codrington, Managing Director of Lenovo Australia and New Zealand. This is a Fear and Greed Daily interview. Join us every morning for the full episode of Fear and Greed, Australia's most popular business podcast. I'm Sean Aylmer. Enjoy your day.